So I like to do a lot of different things, and one of the assignments, or one of the movies that I like to show to my 7th and 8th graders is Selena. So we have an activity period, and it makes it really difficult because I don't see all of my students for that activity period. So I figured out, well, I'm going to show this movie Selena, but I can't just show the movie and have no purpose in it, or they're not going to watch it. So Jen and I sat down and I said, well, I really want to do something with this project. What can I do to give this movie purpose? So we started discussing some ideas, and I came up with a couple different things, and we decided that I was going to give the students, again, a choice, and they had the choice to either answer 2 questions that I had asked about the movie, and then find another movie to compare to where they can answer those similar questions about how they related to them as a person, how it related to the characters in the movie. Or they could pick one of the quotes that I had given them from the movie, talk about how it related to them, how it related to Selena, and then find another quote from the movie and do the same thing. So I just want to show you one of the projects that my students created. And again, this is what I told them they were doing. I didn't tell them to write it. I didn't tell them to make a video. I didn't tell them to make a PowerPoint. I didn't tell them to do a slideshow. I said, however you want to display this information is how you're going to do it, and however you're going to feel most comfortable and sharing with the class to engage everybody else. So this is what one of the students came up with, and I thought it was really, really impressive that all I did was tell them what to do, and they added whatever they wanted to add to make it interesting. So this was one of the first quotes. When I'm on stage, I can be anything I want to be. And this student went and found an image that represented that quote perfectly. So the question was, what did the quote mean to Selena? What did it mean to her life? I know there's a lot of words on here, and I do usually try to discourage having a lot of text on slides, but in order for this project, because they had to submit it to me, I needed to be able to have that to go back and grade it. But she answered the questions. She put this together. She really, truly thought about it, and she used the stage as kind of like a metaphor to talk about being around people, whether it's on stage or not, but being around other people and how that she likes to feel, how she feels the most comfortable. So this is what the other quote, for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm free, like I could. The quote represented something in the movie, but she kind of then took it and discussed how it meant to her, how it meant in the movie, and it was just the way that she did it, I thought it really stood out because the audience was interested in it, and she didn't just stand up there and say, okay, well, I chose this quote because, I chose this quote because. Other students found videos, they showed the videos to the class that represented the movie, and they all found different ways to share what they had learned, and it made it interesting for me as a teacher and for the students to be able to learn from each other. Yes?
I'm an language teacher as well, so how do you feel that to talk Spanish in the class? What friends struggle with it? Because there's so much content, we have to teach them to speak the language, and they need to know the word. They want to be doing very effective. How do you feel about that?
How do I feel that they're learning the content?
Actual Spanish, yeah.
I do a lot of things. I'm actually going to talk a little bit more specifically about how I bring all of that in. I have been implementing a little bit of the flip model this year, and I'm sure you've heard about that throughout the conference, but because of the fact that the majority of the Spanish that my students are learning as beginner and intermediate level students, it's a lot of vocabulary, which is strict memorization for the most part. So I give them the tools to learn that vocabulary, and then they can find however they want that they best learn it. I give them the expectations, and I tell them these are the words that you need to know, but I don't go through every word. I used to stand in front of the room with flashcards, and I would say, okay, hola means hello, adios means goodbye, and I realized that was an absolute waste of my time because that's information that they could get from anywhere and from anything. So I give them options like Quizlets. I find them videos on the internet that they can watch to pick up that vocabulary. I give them resources. They find resources and they share those with each other. They share those with me. So when it comes to the actual vocabulary, they're expected to learn that on their own. And then in the classroom, we put it into context by creating dialogues, creating conversations, doing interactive activities where they can actually use that information. So I do want to talk a little bit about another project that I'm really proud of my students. I had come to the conference last year and I sat in on the workshop on the Wikispace Legacy Project, the Internet Legacy Project. And I started to think about it, and I said I really wanted to do one, but I didn't really think right away, what could I do with it? So one of the topics that my students really, really enjoy learning about is Spanish culture, the different kinds of foods they eat, the different kinds of tourist activities, the different kinds of languages, and the currency, and all those things. And I used to spend a lot of time teaching that. And I realized that that was something that I didn't have to teach, that they could kind of learn and teach themselves. So I thought this would be a great way to actually use the wiki spaces where they could provide information for each other, they could research and learn information. So what we came up with, and this with feedback from my students, was that they were going to be creating a Spanish culture project using wiki spaces. And the project would be that every student would be able to choose a Spanish-speaking country that they're most interested in. and a topic from that country that they're most interested in learning about. That's all they were taught. So they came up, and I had student volunteers come up, and they brainstormed all of the different topics that they might want to cover from different countries. And each student picked his or her own country, and each student picked his or her own topic that they wanted to research. They spent, I would say, about 5 months, maybe once a week or once every other week in class, about an hour, and on their own time, researching that particular topic from the country that they had chosen and putting together some kind of visual images with some text, with videos, whatever it was, on a Wikispace page that we kind of worked collaboratively on as a class, which in the end would be an ongoing project. I decided they were going to be the ones that were starting this project. So as we were working on this project, they wanted to know how they were going to be graded. So I asked them, how do you think we should be graded on this project? Well, we should be graded on our classwork. We should get points, participation points for working on classwork. I said, okay, how many points? And we talked together as a class, and they decided, okay, every day that they worked, they would have 5 points available to them for the work that they did. If they actually did something, it was worth 5 points. The end project, when we decided to come up with a final grade, I asked each class, I have 4 8th grade classes, they had to decide how many points they wanted the project to be, what kinds of categories would be on a rubric, what kinds of things they would be wanted to be graded on, and what the categories of the rubric would entail and would imply, and how many points each of those was worth. I wanted to showcase this one. I don't know if you can see it very well, but one of my classes came up with 5 topics that they wanted to include on the rubric: creativity, mechanics, presentation, visual appeal, and content. After they came up with that, they decided how many points each one should be worth, and they thought it would be easier to make each one 20 points, make the project worth an even 100 points. So I polled the class, okay, what are you most interested in, what are you most interested in, and they divided up into 5 different groups. They wrote this rubric. I didn't have anything to do with this other than putting it up here for you to see today. I talked to them about rubrics that they've used in their other classes. What does a typical rubric cover? What does it look like? They sat down in small groups, and each group was responsible for writing the categories and the grading scale for each of the topics. So one group was creativity, one group was mechanics, and so on and so forth. Once they had all finished, they each got up and they shared that with the class. One student volunteer took all the information together and put it together in one final rubric. When they presented their Wikispace projects at the end of the year, one of the students created a Google form that matched this entire rubric. That was sent to every student in the class, and each student in that class gave a grade to the student presenters that were doing their Wikispace project. They all graded their own work, and I kind of just glanced and took an average of the grades. But the individual presenters did their own grades, and the rest of the class got to grade each other and give feedback, which was really valuable to the students. So this is the Wikispace. This is the culture project that they worked on all year, and I'm intending it to be an ongoing project because there's plenty of information that can be added. But you see the list of Spanish-speaking countries on the side, and under each country there's different topics for each country. So the students literally came up with every aspect of it, and I gave them no expectations, I gave them no requirements. All they had to do was research a topic, find out about it, and find the best way to share it with others. So the one thing that was important was to have a homepage for each country. So I told the students, you need to create a homepage. So I had a student come up with every topic for Spain, and they created a Wordle. And underneath the Wordle are the topics for all the topics that were covered by that group for the country of Spain. And each homepage for each country looks different. The kids were able to do it as they wanted to do it. So that was one of the things that they said they really, really enjoyed about the project, was that they were given so much freedom and they were able to take ownership of it. So one of the pages that really stood out was the one on Spanish cultures and holidays. Again, I gave them no guidelines, I gave them no expectations. They were allowed to go and research and work as they saw fit, and found the best way for them to share that information and the way they thought that their classmates and future generations and students all over the world would be able to learn most about the culture of these Spanish-speaking countries. So they incorporated YouTube videos, pictures. They covered whatever topic they wanted to cover. The ones that most interested them, they thought would be the most interesting for other students. And again, as it's an ongoing project, the students in the future may add to it, they may change things, but the majority of this is set, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where it's going to go in the next couple of years.
One of the things, real quick, with rubrics, one of the things I would tell teachers is just kind of a rule of thumb. It shouldn't be more than 20% technology. It really should be about everything else. It should be about the content. It should be about the presentation. So we did a lot of work on digital storytelling. and how do we present. And that was something that the teachers had a lot of training on, in how do we get kids to express themselves, and so that they're not reading from slides, so that they would give ownership and accreditation to the things that they were finding. We talked about using Creative Commons a lot and searching for information there. And this was something that we would do across all of the grade levels, so that they were hearing it from multiple teachers. That was a little hard for me, getting the buy-in with regards to information literacy. It's not sexy, information literacy, and really thinking about who owns that piece of it, and doing that. And one of the things I would talk to the teachers about is, okay, when kids are done an assignment and they're done a project, have them go to Creative Commons and create their own license for things. When they start doing that, they start to realize, like, oh wow, anybody could use this if I don't give it a license. And that starts to really get them to understand that they're taking somebody else's work.
Hola, so what did you guys like most about doing the Wikispace project?
I liked how we got to make our own page. We didn't have like a set thing to do. We got to work on our own, and that I left my digital footprint on the internet.
And what subject did you have on our project?
I had fashion in Spain.
What about you?
I like working on the Wikispaces because I learned a lot of stuff from other countries. I learned a lot of stuff from other countries and stuff, so yeah, I like that.
So I mean, that was kind of the response that I got from the majority of my students, was the fact that they were given so much freedom.